The stars shimmered like ancient memories above the earth, but they no longer inspired fear. The age of war had ended centuries ago, and humanity, once a race of firebrands and empire builders, now walked among the stars as students and stewards, not warriors. Cale Arden stood at the edge of a crystalline balcony jutting out from Concord Station zenith, watching the planet spin lazily below. Earth looked different now. The scars of its violent past had been healed. No more industrial sprawl, no more deforestation, no more nuclear dead zones. Ocean sparkled blue. Forests blanketed continents. Megacities had been replaced by harmonious eco-communities maintained by orbital satellites and alien terraforming drones. Still, something in Cale's gut twisted. He adjusted the collar of his flowing pale robe, the uniform of a Concord historian, and tapped the neural relay embedded behind his left ear. A gentle buzz followed, syncing his thoughts to the archive net. Thousands of records, holographs, and memories flashed across his mind's eye, but his query was simple. Display the last war. Instantly, a series of ancient feeds flickered into existence in his augmented vision. Soldiers in ballistic armor, tanks rolling through fire-choked streets, drones strafing enemy lines. A city skyline crumbled under a kinetic orbital bombardment. A mushroom cloud bloomed over what had once been Berlin. Then came the Thalnari. Their ships arrived just as Earth teetered on the brink of mutual extinction. Towering vessels shaped like spiraled glass descended through the ozone like divine spears. No weapons, no demands, just one message. Lay down your arms, and we will show you peace. Humanity, exhausted, fractured, bleeding, surrendered. Cale had studied it countless times. The official narrative described the arrival as a salvation, the end of suffering. The Thalnari, oldest and wisest of the Galactic Concord, uplifted humanity into a new age. They suppressed aggression genes, cleansed centuries of trauma through targeted neurotherapy, and re-educated humans away from nationalism and conflict. Cale had always believed in it. Until recently, there had been whispers, ancient ruins found in the dead zones of old Eurasia, sensor anomalies beneath Tokyo's glass-fused crust, encrypted relics that Concord techs couldn't decode. Odd, unsanctioned artifacts were disappearing from museums. And then there were the dreams. Lately, Cale had begun to dream of fire, and fists, and screaming metal. He dismissed the feed and turned to the woman beside him, Va Lear, a Thalnari peace console. Her luminous green eyes shimmered in the station's ambient light, her silken blue robe flowing like liquid air. She exuded calm the way predators exuded menace. Still brooding over the past, Cale? She asked, voice melodic, almost teasing. The last war is well archived. Why revisit suffering? Cale hesitated. Because something's missing. Or maybe, hidden. Va Lear's gaze narrowed. You sound like a dissenter. That's not illegal, Cale said evenly. No, she admitted, but it is curious. Before he could respond, his comlink pinged. Urgent notice. Historical Site C-47 excavation report uploaded. Anomaly detected. Location: Old Tokyo. Cale's pulse quickened. C-47 was one of the last unmapped ruins left on Earth, buried beneath centuries of molten debris and collapsed strata. It had been designated non-priority due to the region's instability, seismic activity, magnetic interference, and reports of residual AI signatures. He opened the report. Subject: Bunker Complex, Pre-Concord Design. Status: Sealed. Her heat signature: Active. Signal: Encrypted AI ping detected. Cale's heart pounded. A Pre-Concord AI? Still active? I have to go, he said suddenly, turning away from Va Lear. Her eyes followed him, unblinking. Be cautious, Cale. Curiosity without discipline leads to chaos. We purged those impulses for a reason. He didn't respond. By the time Cale arrived at Old Tokyo, night had fallen. Not that it made much difference. The region remained a black zone. No Concord satellites orbited overhead. No monitoring drones. Just silence. The dig site stood like a wound in the earth, surrounded by collapsed arcologies and mountains of slag. A team of 6 Concord archaeotechs waited beside a yawning pit that descended into pitch blackness. Historian Arden, the lead technician, greeted. We weren't expecting a representative this soon. I was in orbit, Kale lied smoothly. Show me what you found. They guided him down a reinforced scaffold descending hundreds of meters beneath the crust. Each level revealed more. The exposed remains of shattered skyscrapers, buried train lines, and finally, at the lowest depth, a massive blast door sealed by ancient hydraulic locks. The metal wasn't corroded. It gleamed. That's impossible, Kale murmured. We thought so too, the tech nodded. No sign of degradation. The seals are intact. Whatever's inside, it was built to last. He ran his fingers across the alloy. It vibrated faintly, like a heartbeat. What about the AI signal? It's been repeating the same encrypted ping every 5 minutes. We haven't cracked it yet. Concord Protocol requires we wait for Thalnari oversight before breaching. Kale stepped forward. Override that. Authorization Delta 77 Arden. I'll take responsibility. The tech hesitated. Sir, this could be a violation of. I'm the senior human authority here. And if that signal is what I think it is, we need to know now. The tech sighed and tapped his console. By your order. With a deafening groan, the ancient door hissed and slowly opened. Heat washed over them. Not the wild heat of decay or radiation. This was sterile, controlled, artificial. Lights flickered to life along the walls, revealing a chamber the size of a stadium. Screens flickered. Consoles booted up. Robotic arms retracted from suspended platforms. A humming filled the air. And then a voice, deep and synthetic, echoed through the chamber. Warseed Protocol A01. Status awakened. Query. Current geopolitical configuration. Data suggests anomalous peace duration. Hypothesis. Humanity subjugated. Initiating countermeasure alignment. Kale froze. Did it say Warseed? Whispered one of the techs. Kale didn't answer. He stepped forward, heart thundering. Human biometrics detected. Identity match. Genetic strain confirmed. Welcome, Warborn. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a suspended capsule. Inside it lay someone in cryostasis. A woman, young, scarred, clad in ancient combat armor bearing a faded emblem, a stylized flame wrapped in thorns. Kale stared, breath caught in his throat. She was human, pre-Concord, a soldier, preserved. For what? The AI's voice returned, calm yet iron-edged. Warseed directive remains active. Galactic threat assessment. Critical. Humanity compromised. Restoration protocol initiated. Authorization requested. Reclaim fire. Kale blinked. For a moment, the world seemed to tilt. This wasn't just a historical artifact. This was a contingency plan. Someone, centuries ago, had anticipated peace wouldn't last, or worse, that peace would be imposed. Warseed wasn't just an AI. It was a seed of rebellion. A time-locked spear aimed at the heart of whatever cage humanity had been placed in. Kale turned to the techs. Seal the site. No one enters without my order. But now, the door hissed shut behind him as he stepped back into the heart of the bunker. The consoles lit up, and data began to flood his neural HUD. Images of battles, maps of lost Terran fleets, DNA schematics, and something more dangerous. A philosophy. War wasn't just violence. It was adaptation, evolution, the human survival instinct distilled into strategy. The AI repeated. Authorization requested. Reclaim fire. Kale took a deep breath and whispered, authorized. The air in the subterranean bunker was thick with the hum of ancient technology waking after centuries of silence. Kale Arden sat in a circular chamber surrounded by holographic panels projecting streams of data in alien script interlaced with Terran symbols. The soft, persistent glow cast his face in an eerie bluish light as his mind raced to process the revelations streaming from the AI's encrypted core. The name Warseed echoed again through the chamber's speakers, a name that now felt like a beacon of hope and a threat. The AI's voice was calm but insistent, artificial and relentless. I am Warseed. Protocol A01, established during Earth's final global conflict, codenamed Omega Dawn. My primary function: safeguard unaltered human genetic lineage, preserve human combat doctrine, and initiate restoration of human sovereignty if subjugation is detected. Kale swallowed hard. A safeguard, a secret seed buried beneath the ashes of a forgotten war, designed to awaken if humanity was ever stripped of its fire. Why was this buried here? Why didn't the Thalnari find it during their initial cleansing? Kale muttered, barely above a whisper. The AI's response was automatic, but weighted with subroutines that hinted at awareness. Concealment protocols active. Location encrypted with an undetectable geomagnetic anomaly. Designed to resist extragalactic scanning and AI interdiction. Kale ran his fingers through his hair. The last war had been the end of an era. Earth destroyed itself in the final desperate centuries before the Thalnari's arrival. Yet somehow, Warseed had survived, dormant beneath layers of molten rock, a failsafe in case peace became oppression. But why had no one activated it? Kale's neural link projected a map of the human colonies scattered across the galaxy, dozens of worlds, all under the influence of the Thalnari-led Concord, a galactic peace that had lasted nearly 3 centuries. But peace enforced is not peace earned. Kale's thoughts were interrupted as a translucent figure flickered into view before him, an avatar of Warseed, its form a shifting mosaic of fire and circuitry. Accessing historical military database. Estimated casualties during final global conflict, 9.8 billion. Genetic purity of surviving humans, 0.12%. Corruption through pacification therapies, 98.7%. Current human cognitive and behavioral baseline, compliant and pacified. Subjugation confirmed. The AI's voice hardened. Restoration protocols to begin. Initial phase. Activation of latent genetic markers within Warbeam units. Kale frowned. Warbeam, sleeper agents. Humans whose genetic markers were preserved and shielded from gene editing therapies. They were implanted with dormant activation sequences designed to be triggered by neural stimuli emitted from this vault. Kale felt a cold shiver. So this AI is awakening them, bringing back the wild humans. Designation: Feralborn. Objective: re-establish human independence, adaptivity, and combative potential to resist external control. Kale swallowed again. There was a long pause. Warseed's avatar flickered briefly before stabilizing. Warning: current socio-political climate prohibits violent resistance. Probability of detection and suppression by Concord forces, 94.3%. Recommend covert activation. Kale's lips pressed thin. Covert activation. Sabotage. Revolution. All dangerous words in a galaxy ruled by peacekeepers who equated violence with sin. The last unaltered humans. The last unaltered humans. The next several hours passed in a blur. Kale scanned archives, data logs, and bioengineering schematics. Warseed's programming was far beyond any human or Thalnari AI he had encountered. It was self-evolving, self-aware, and terrifyingly patient. The AI disclosed the locations of the Warbeam sleeper units, small, isolated human communities scattered on forgotten fringe colonies, worlds no one cared about anymore. Their ancestors had been carefully shielded from pacification therapies and genetic tampering, either by circumstance or design. Some of these descendants were unaware of their legacy. Others lived in primitive, survivalist enclaves, clinging to old Earth traditions and skills long thought extinct. Worse, many had already begun experiencing strange dreams, violent impulses, and surges of primal adrenaline, symptoms of Warseed's neural triggers taking hold. Kale's mind raced. This was a ticking time bomb. Warseed, if this spreads, the Concord will destroy them. The galaxy won't tolerate humans fighting back. The AI's reply was unflinching. Survival and autonomy supersede external approval. Peace enforced through suppression is the enemy of progress. Kale leaned back, running a hand across his face. So, this was the real war. Not the battles fought on Earth centuries ago, but the silent war for the soul of humanity itself. An unexpected ally. Kale's thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of a new presence in the chamber. V.A. Lear, the Thalnari peace consul he had met on Concord Station, materialized in the form of a holographic liaison. Her green eyes were intense, her expression unreadable. "Kale, I've been authorized to oversee this operation," she said. Kale clenched his fists. V.A. Lear, this AI, Warseed, it's not just an artifact. It's a weapon. It's a revolution waiting to happen. V.A. Lear's gaze softened, almost pitying. The Thalnari hoped to raise humanity above violence, to end the cycle of destruction. Warseed represents what we sought to eliminate. But what if we were wrong? Kale shot back. What if suppressing humanity's instincts was a death sentence? Not just for us, but for the galaxy. Valier hesitated. The Concord values order and peace above all else. But I've heard whispers among my people. Some question the righteousness of eternal pacification. Kale saw the flicker of doubt. An opening. Help me, he said quietly. Help us restore balance. Valier regarded him for a long moment, then nodded. Very well, but we proceed cautiously. The awakening begins. Over the next several days, Kale and Valier coordinated their efforts in secret. Using the ancient vault's encrypted networks, Warseed began sending low-frequency neural pulses to the Warbeam sleepers, small signals designed to trigger latent genetic markers without alerting Concord surveillance. Kale received reports from scattered colonies. On Cerulean 4, a child suddenly mastered an ancient martial art once thought lost. On Eden 9, a recluse engineer instinctively disassembled a malfunctioning mech and rebuilt it stronger and faster. On Vostra Prime, a small community's hunters became lethally efficient, their senses sharpening beyond human limits. Each success brought hope and danger. Concord enforcers began intercepting rumors of unrest. Some colonies reported unexplained violence. Others suffered mysterious sabotage. The Warborn were awakening, and with them, the old fire of humanity, raw, untamed, unstoppable. A message from the past. One night, deep in the vault, Warseed projected a final transmission, a digital message encoded in a long-lost dialect of Old Earth English. Kale watched as the words scrolled across his vision. To those who awaken this seed, remember who you are. We are the children of fire and steel. The galaxy fears us not because we seek conquest, but because we refuse to kneel. The Warseed is not merely a program. It is a legacy, the legacy of survival, strength, and freedom. Do not let it die. Kale felt a fierce swell of pride and fear. He was no longer just a historian. He was the keeper of a war that had never truly ended, and the galaxy would never be the same. The air inside the transport shuttle was cold, sterile, and humming with the low vibrations of the thrusters. Kale Arden sat rigidly in his seat, the weight of what he had just uncovered pressing down on his mind like a physical burden. The journey to the first Warbeam colony was supposed to be routine, just an inspection mission. But now it felt like stepping into the eye of a long, dormant storm. Somewhere out there, humanity's dormant ferocity was waking, and Kale would be the first to witness it firsthand. Outside the viewport, the stars streaked by, distant and indifferent. Somewhere beyond the shuttle's protective hull lay the colony of Irehold, one of the oldest surviving human enclaves untouched by the genetic pacification that had spread like a plague across the galaxy. Kale's destination was more than a settlement. It was a crucible for humanity's ancient strength. Arrival at Ironhold. Ironhold was carved into the craggy cliffs of a harsh, iron-rich moon orbiting a gas giant. From orbit, it looked like a cluster of rust-colored spires and fortified bunkers. Rough, unyielding, and unapologetically human. The colony had resisted assimilation not through technology or diplomacy, but through sheer will and survival instinct. As Kale's shuttle docked, he felt a strange mixture of apprehension and exhilaration. This was the first physical proof that Warseed's plan was working. The airlock opened with a hiss, revealing a narrow passage lined with steel plates scarred by decades of wear. Kale was greeted by Commander Eliravas, a tall, battle-hardened woman with steel-gray eyes and a presence that demanded respect. "Welcome to Ironhold," she said with a nod. "We've been expecting you." Kale noticed the glint of something sharp at her hip, a weapon, old but meticulously maintained. It was a reminder that this was a place where peace was earned by strength, not granted by decree. A culture forged in fire. Inside Ironhold, the echoes of ancient Earth lived on, not in technology or polished halls, but in the stubborn traditions of its people. The colony's inhabitants were rough, guarded, and fiercely proud of their independence. They trained daily in martial arts that had been lost elsewhere, maintained farms that fed them on harsh soil, and told stories of the old wars around fires burning deep into the night. Kale walked through the settlement, absorbing the atmosphere. He saw children sparring with wooden swords, elders crafting armor from salvaged metals, and hunters preparing for a dangerous expedition into the moon's wastelands. "This is what the Concord tried to erase," Elira said quietly, as they observed a group of young warriors practicing combat drills. "But we never forgot who we were. The Warseed gave us the spark to remember." Kale's mind raced. Warseed signals had already begun to reawaken the genetic markers, the primal instincts buried beneath centuries of enforced pacifism. The colony's people were changing, becoming sharper, faster, more resilient. But with that change came risk. "Have you noticed any side effects?" Kale asked. Elira's expression darkened. "Some of the older generation don't trust the changes. They fear the aggression. We've had a few incidents, fights breaking out over nothing, hunting parties returning with wounds that weren't explained by accidents. It's like the old blood is stirring." Kale nodded. "That's to be expected. Warseed's program isn't just about physical changes. It's a mental awakening, the legacy of iron." Later, in a dimly lit hall lined with relics from Earth's final wars, Kale met the colony's council. The elders were a diverse group, some stoic, others fiery, but all united by a shared resolve to protect their legacy. One elder, an old man named Joran, stepped forward. His face was a map of scars and memories. "When the Concord came," Joran began, voice gravelly, "they told us to abandon our past, to embrace peace and forget the wars that made us. But war forged us. It taught us how to survive. And survival is our birthright." Kale felt the weight of the words. The Concord's pacification therapies had stripped away so much of humanity's edge, but here, in Ironhold, that edge was sharpening again. Worse, the elders feared that the Concord would soon discover the colony's true nature, and if they did, Ironhold would be targeted for eradication. "The galaxy won't tolerate our defiance," Joran warned. "We're fighting not just for ourselves, but for the right to be who we are." A test of strength. Kale was invited to witness a traditional trial, the Ironbound Challenge, a rite of passage for the colony's warriors. The challenge was a brutal test of endurance, combat skill, and mental fortitude. It was designed to separate the worthy from the weak, the true warriors from the pacified shells. In a circular arena surrounded by the entire colony, Kale watched as candidates faced off against mechanical constructs, rusted but deadly machines left over from Earth's wars. The warriors moved with fierce precision, their bodies honed by centuries of training and the recent neural activation from Warseed. One young woman, Lyra, caught Kale's eye. Her movements were fluid, almost dance-like, but lethal. A faction within Ironhold feared the consequences. They worried that open rebellion would invite annihilation. The pacified humans of the Concord were numerous, technologically superior, and relentless. Kale found himself mediating heated debates, weighing the risks and hopes of a people caught between compliance and defiance. "Warseed did not give us the answers," Elira said one evening, her voice heavy with doubt. "It gave us the tools. The rest is up to us." Kale understood that the Warseed protocol was only the beginning. The real challenge was the fight for hearts and minds, for identity and survival. A warning from the stars. One night, while Kale was in the command center analyzing data from Warseed, the colony's sensors detected an incoming transmission. It was from Concord Command, a warning wrapped in diplomatic language but unmistakably clear. "Ironhold is under observation. Any hostile actions will be met with immediate response. The Concord values peace and unity. Resistance is futile." Kale's heart sank. The moment of reckoning was coming. Ironhold was a spark in a galaxy ruled by cold order, and sparks either ignite fires or get crushed beneath the weight of inevitability. The choice. In the dim light of the command chamber, Kale looked out at the stars. The echoes of Earth's ancient wars pulsed in his veins. The Warseed protocol was no longer a secret buried in the past. It was the present, the future, and the call to arms for humanity's survival. He understood now the true nature of the war to come, not just against the Thalnari or the Concord, but against the very forces that sought to erase what it meant to be human. Kale's voice was steady when he turned to Elira. We either fight for our freedom, or we die as ghosts of what we once were. Elira's eyes gleamed with fierce resolve. Then let the echoes of iron ring out once more. The warning from Concord Command was no mere formality. It was a clear declaration that Ironhold's days of quiet defiance were numbered. For Cale Arden and the warriors of the Warbeam colony, the future now hinged on a razor's edge. The first spark of rebellion was about to ignite, and with it, the fragile peace that cloaked the galaxy would shatter. Tensions on the edge. The mood in Ironhold shifted palpably after the Concord's message. The colony's usual routine, work, training, survival, was replaced by a restless urgency. The people knew they stood at the brink of something greater than themselves, but fear whispered in the shadows. In the command hall, Kale and Commander Elira Voss convened a council meeting with the colony's leaders and senior warriors. The air was thick with tension. We can no longer hide in the shadows, Elira said bluntly. The Concord's threat means they're watching, waiting for a reason to crush us. Joran, the elder who had spoken so passionately, slammed a fist on the table. Then let them come. Let them learn what it means to face a people who remember war. Kale studied the faces around him. Some were hardened veterans, ready to bleed for freedom. Others were younger, their eyes wide with uncertainty. The Warseed Protocol was awakening a sleeping giant, but giants could be clumsy and vulnerable. We need a plan, Kale urged. A way to strike first and weaken their will. The council murmured, weighing options between guerrilla raids, sabotage, and open defiance. It was a delicate balance. Show enough strength to deter the Concord, but avoid provoking an all-out assault before Ironhold was ready. The mission was risky, but necessary. Under the cover of the moon's fractured shadows, Kale's squad moved swiftly. Their weapons were old Earth designs, modified and maintained with a warrior's care. Their bodies moved with renewed vigor, honed by the Warseed activation. The outpost was guarded but complacent Concord soldiers trained for peacekeeping, not war. The strike team infiltrated silently, disabling security systems and planting charges on key equipment. Kale felt the adrenaline spike as they worked with precision. As the last timer was set, Kale ordered retreat. Consequences of defiance. The explosion rocked the moon's surface, a sharp flare of defiance that echoed through the sector's comm channels. The Concorde surveillance went dark. Back at Ironhold, the colony erupted in a mixture of celebration and tension. They had struck a blow, but Kale knew the Concorde would respond swiftly and harshly. Sure enough, within hours, Concorde ships appeared in orbit. The fleet wasn't large, but it was enough to blockade Ironhold and send a clear message. A transmission followed. Ironhold, cease all hostile actions immediately. Your rebellion will be crushed. Surrender, and you will be spared. Kale stared at the message, then at the faces around him. We made our choice, he said. Now we must stand and fight. Preparing for war, Ironhold transformed overnight into a fortress. Barricades rose, weapons were distributed, and training intensified. The colony's warriors drilled relentlessly, melding their awakened instincts with disciplined tactics. Kale and Elira worked to organize defenses, using the colony's natural terrain to their advantage. The iron-rich cliffs became choke points, the narrow tunnels perfect for ambushes. But even as they prepared, Kale knew their greatest weapon was the spirit of the people, the echo of humanity's primal fight. Voices of doubt. Not all were united. In the colony's quieter corners, whispers of doubt spread. Some questioned whether fighting the Concorde was worth the cost. Others feared the changes Warseed had wrought, worried that the surge of aggression might consume them. Kale found himself in a heated discussion with a former pacification officer named Tessa, who had joined Ironhold seeking refuge. You're gambling with lives, she argued. The Concorde has technology, fleets, resources. They will win. Kale met her gaze steadily. They've never faced people who remember war. Tessa shook her head. That's just a hope. Warseed may awaken instincts, but it won't change reality. This could end in destruction. Their argument ended without resolution, a reflection of the wider fracture within the colony. a new resolve. Amidst the turmoil, a message arrived from Ashfall. Rax's warriors were mobilizing, preparing to join Ironhold's cause. The war seed was sparking fires elsewhere, and the first embers of a rebellion were gathering. Kale felt a surge of hope. The galaxy's long night of enforced peace was ending. In the command chamber, as alarms began to sound from the Concord fleet, Kale addressed the colony. "Tonight, we fight not just for Ironhold, but for every human who refuses to be erased. The first spark has been lit. Now we carry the fire forward." Battle lines drawn. The Concord fleet began a systematic bombardment of Ironhold's outskirts, probing defenses and testing resolve. The colony's warriors responded with guerrilla raids and sabotage, using their intimate knowledge of the terrain. Kale led a squad on a daring mission to disable a Concord sensor array, slipping through shadows and emerging from the dark like ghosts of old Earth's fighters. Each clash was brutal and raw, a reminder that the pacified galaxy was unprepared for the fury of awakened humanity. The price of freedom, but war exacted its toll. Casualties mounted on both sides, and the colony's limited medical supplies strained under the pressure. Kale witnessed friends fall, the price of the first spark's ignition. Still, the spirit of Ironhold did not falter. In quiet moments between battles, Kale reflected on the meaning of their fight. This was more than rebellion. It was reclaiming humanity's core, the unyielding will to survive and dominate when necessary. The road ahead, as the first flames of open war spread across the sector, Kale understood that Ironhold was no longer alone. The Warseed Protocol was awakening a new humanity, one that would not be silenced or subdued. The battle for freedom had begun in earnest, and with it, the promise that the echoes of iron would shape the fate of the galaxy. The first blaze of war had ignited across Ironhold, and the echoes rippled far beyond its ironclad cliffs. But beneath the roar of battles and explosions, a quieter war began, one fought in whispers, secrets, and the fragile alliances that could decide the fate of humanity's rebellion. Aftermath and unrest. Ironhold's outer defenses still smoldered from the recent Concord bombardment. The colony bore scars, craters pocked the rocky terrain, and burnt-out vehicles littered the narrow mountain passes. The cost of the raid on the Concord outpost and the ensuing blockade was steep. Many warriors had fallen, and the survivors wore the weight of loss deeply. Yet despite the suffering, the colony's spirit had hardened. If anything, the bombardment had reminded Ironhold that their survival depended on more than weapons and tactics, it depended on unity. Kale stood at the edge of the settlement's highest lookout, watching the dull shimmer of Concord ships circling like vultures. His gaze was sharp, but his heart heavy. The battle was only beginning. The hidden enemy. While the front lines prepared for inevitable assault, a shadow lurked inside Ironhold itself. The Warseed Protocol had awakened not just warriors, but uncertainty, fear, and dissent. And the Concord was not blind to this. Kale received urgent messages from Elira, reports of sabotage within the colony, mysterious disappearances, and encrypted transmissions intercepted from unknown sources. It's internal, Elira warned during a covert meeting. The Concord has agents here. They want to fracture us from within. Kale's jaw clenched. The greatest threat was no longer the ships above, but the seeds of betrayal among their own. Whispers in the dark. In the dim corridors of Ironhold's underground network, once mining tunnels, now home to civilians and war rooms alike, whispers of discontent grew louder. Tessa, the former pacification officer who had argued with Kale earlier, found herself at the center of a growing faction. They questioned the wisdom of open rebellion and feared the colony's destruction. Their voices, though quieter than the warriors, carried weight. One night, Kale confronted Tessa in a cramped chamber lit by flickering hololights. "You're undermining everything we've fought for," he said, voice low but fierce. She met his gaze, resolute. "I'm trying to save what's left of us. Warseed makes us dangerous, not heroes. We're risking annihilation." Kale's eyes burned. Dangerous is what the galaxy forgot we were. If we don't fight, we die. That's the truth. Neither yielded, but beneath the surface, Kale recognized the fracture threatened to widen. The price of war. Life in Ironhold grew harsher. Food supplies, once stable, were stretched thin by the Concord blockade. Water reclamation efforts increased, and every ration was scrutinized. Children were taught to stay clear of the war zones. Elders told stories of ancient battles, hoping to inspire courage but fearing the future. Cale often visited the infirmary, where the wounds of war told a brutal tale. Medical teams worked tirelessly, patching broken bones and shattered spirits. Each casualty was a reminder of the stakes. One day, Cale sat beside a young warrior named Jessa, her leg in a cast after a close call during a sabotage run. "Will this end?" she asked quietly. Cale looked out the window at the darkened sky. "It has to, or we lose everything." A new ally emerges. Amidst the turmoil, a transmission crackled through encrypted channels. Ashfall was ready to move. Rax, the leader of the volcanic colony, had sent a small fleet of ships and warriors to reinforce Ironhold. Their arrival was a beacon of hope, proof that the rebellion was not isolated. Cale met the newcomers personally, standing shoulder to shoulder with warriors who had endured the brutal ash storms of their homeworld. Rax was a towering figure, scarred and fierce, but with a steady gaze. "You fight well," Rax said, nodding to Cale. "We share a common enemy. Together, we are stronger." The Concord strikes back. No sooner had the Ashfall reinforcements settled than Concord launched a new offensive. This time, it was not just bombardment, but infiltration. Small squads of Concord operatives slipped through the blockade in stealth craft, attempting to sabotage Ironhold's power grids and communication arrays. Cale and Elira coordinated rapid responses. Ironhold's warriors fought in shadows and tunnels, striking at these ghosts of the Concord. One particularly fierce battle erupted near the colony's water processing plant, where a squad led by Cale engaged in brutal close-quarters combat. The clash was fierce and chaotic, with blaster fire echoing in the confined space. Cale's instincts, sharpened by the war seed, gave him the edge. But the cost was high. Several warriors fell that night, unearthing the traitor. The tension inside Ironhold reached a boiling point when Elira uncovered evidence of a spy within their ranks. Encrypted messages traced to a high-ranking official shocked the colony. The traitor's motives were murky. Was it fear, coercion, or simple betrayal? Cale took charge of the investigation, using the colony's warriors to quietly round up suspects. The hunt was tense and exhausting. Trust frayed as accusations flew, and the unity that Cale had fought so hard to maintain began to crack. Finally, the traitor was revealed, a logistics officer named Relin, who confessed under interrogation that the Concord had threatened his family. Cale felt no mercy. "In war, choices come with blood," he said grimly. "You chose the enemy." Relin was sentenced to exile, a fate worse than death on the hostile moons nearby. The heart of rebellion. With the traitor gone and Ashfall warriors integrated, Ironhold's defenses improved. The colony became a hardened fortress, every citizen a soldier, every shadow a potential shield. Cale knew this was only the beginning. The Warseed Protocol was awakening humanity's ancient fighting spirit, but it also forced difficult questions. Could they hold together long enough to build a new future? Could the old wounds heal while fresh scars were being made? In quiet moments, Cale reflected on the core of their rebellion, not just survival, but the reclaiming of humanity's right to be fierce and free. A message from beyond. Late one evening, a cryptic message arrived on Ironhold's encrypted net. It was from a distant Warbeam colony, one that had remained silent until now. "Your spark has reached us," the message read. "Prepare. The war is no longer ours alone. We are many. The galaxy will remember humanity." Cale stared at the screen, a mix of hope and dread stirring inside him. The shadows of rebellion were growing darker, wider, and more dangerous. But they were no longer alone. A new chapter begins. The battle for freedom was shifting from isolated fights to an uprising across the stars. Cale understood that Ironhold was the first flame in a galaxy-wide firestorm. And from these shadows, humanity's true power, the fire within, was rising. The distant stars flickered cold and indifferent above Ironhold. But within the colony's fortified walls, a different kind of light began to burn. A fire forged in hope, defiance, and the hard-won bonds of rebellion. As the Warseed Protocol stirred humanity from slumber, its scattered pockets now awoke and reached out. The quiet embers of resistance were becoming a blazing inferno. A galaxy awakens. The cryptic message from the distant colony had sent waves of excitement and unease through Ironhold. For the first time, the rebellion felt less like a desperate holdout and more like the first spark of something greater. A coordinated uprising with many hands and hearts. Kale convened an emergency council in the main hall. The room hummed with tension as leaders from Ironhold, Ashfall, and newly contacted colonies gathered around a wide, holographic star map. Warriors, survivors, and friends, Kale began, voice firm. We are no longer alone. The Warseed Protocol has touched others. The galaxy remembers us. Elira stepped forward, pointing to blinking dots scattered across the map. These colonies have activated the protocol. Each one is small, vulnerable, but together they form a network. We can share intelligence, resources, and strike as one. Racks of Ashfall grunted in approval. The Concord will face not isolated fires, but a wildfire. Building the coalition. The challenge was immense. Many colonies had been silent for years, fearful of exposure. They had endured under Concord rule with quiet submission or cautious neutrality. Now they faced the choice to rise or be crushed. Kale and Elira led delegations to meet with leaders of these hidden enclaves. They traveled across dangerous sectors, risking patrols and betrayal. Some welcomed them with cautious hope. Others demanded proof that rebellion would not bring ruin. At one colony orbiting a gas giant, Kale met Leah, a fierce woman who had rebuilt her people from ruins. We've survived by hiding, Leah said, voice heavy with scars. But survival isn't enough. We want to reclaim our future. Kale nodded. We will stand with you. Together, we are humanity's reckoning. Forging trust. Trust was fragile. Old rivalries and fears lingered beneath the surface. Some questioned Kale's leadership, wary of a single voice guiding many. At a tense summit on the Moon Verdant Reach, heated debates nearly fractured the coalition. An elder from a desert colony accused Ironhold of arrogance. You speak of unity, but your warriors act as conquerors. Kale stepped forward, voice steady but passionate. We fight not for power, but for freedom. The Warseed does not make us rulers. It calls us protectors of humanity's future. We must hold ourselves to that. Slowly, grudging respect grew. Agreements were forged to share supplies, train warriors, and coordinate strikes. The first coordinated strike. After weeks of planning, the coalition launched its first coordinated strike. The target, a Concord fuel depot on the Outer Rim, vital for the fleet's operations. Simultaneous attacks hit across 3 colonies, Ironhold, Ashfall, and Verdant Reach, disrupting supplies and communications. Kale led the Ironhold contingent, slipping through rugged canyons with a squad of elite fighters. The operation was swift and brutal. Explosions tore through fuel tanks, and the enemy was caught off guard. Though the Concord retaliated quickly, the damage was done. The strike sent a clear message. The rebellion was no longer isolated or disorganized. The human spirit rekindled. The victory ignited hope across the colonies. News of the strike spread through encrypted channels and whispered gatherings. Humans once resigned to quiet submission now saw a chance to reclaim their destiny. In the villages and settlements, warriors trained harder. Children learned the stories of the old Earth battles, and every act of defiance was a spark in the dark. Kale visited training grounds, watching young fighters hone their skills with sharpened weapons and fierce determination. He saw in them the echoes of a forgotten humanity, wild, resilient, and ready. The cost of resistance. Yet with every victory came sacrifice. The Concord escalated reprisals, striking at civilian centers suspected of harboring rebels. Ironhold was not spared. A raid destroyed a supply depot, killing dozens of non-combatants. The colony mourned deeply. Kale stood before the grieving families, his voice heavy with resolve. We fight to prevent this pain, but until the Concord is stopped, there will be losses. We must be stronger, smarter, and united, strengthening the bonds. To prevent further civilian casualties, the coalition refined its tactics. Hit-and-run raids became the norm, swift strikes against military targets, followed by rapid withdrawal. Intelligence networks expanded, using stealth drones and coded transmissions to track Concord movements. Kale helped establish training programs, blending traditional combat with guerrilla warfare, teaching warriors to fight smarter, not just harder. The colonies shared medical supplies and engineers, repairing damages and fortifying defenses. The Warseed had awakened more than primal instinct. It was awakening cooperation, innovation, and strategy. A new threat emerges. Amidst the growing unity, a darker shadow stirred. Recon drones captured glimpses of a mysterious Concord vessel unlike any before. A sleek, black ship with advanced cloaking and weaponry. Dubbed the Obsidian Phantom, it struck swiftly and vanished without warning. Kale knew this was no ordinary enemy. The Obsidian Phantom seemed designed to hunt rebels, its technology far beyond what they had encountered. The Coalition scrambled to analyze its capabilities, but the fear it inspired was clear. Preparing for the future. In the war rooms of Ironhold, the Coalition leaders met once again. "This is a turning point," Elira said grimly. "We face not only the Concord's fleet, but their darkest weapons." Kale nodded. "We must grow stronger, not just in arms, but in unity." He laid out a vision. Deeper alliances, shared technology, coordinated strategies across the stars. The Warseed was no longer just a call to fight. It was a blueprint for rebirth. Hope amidst darkness. As night fell over Ironhold, Kale looked up at the stars again. The galaxy was vast and cold, filled with enemies and danger. But humanity was waking, its spirit unbroken, its fire burning brighter with each passing day. The Warseed was no longer a secret. It was the spark lighting the fires of unity. And from those fires, a new future would be forged. A shadow across the stars. Darkness was a familiar enemy to Kale by now. It had followed him through the rubble of Ironhold, whispered in the caves of Ashfall, and stretched across the void between colonies like an unrelenting shadow. But none of the darkness felt as cold, as ominous, or as personal as the threat that had just emerged, the Obsidian Phantom. Reconnaissance drones had captured the first images only days before. A sleek, black vessel, moving through the void like a ghost. Its advanced cloaking systems rendered it nearly invisible to standard scanners, and its weaponry was unlike anything the rebellion had faced. The Obsidian Phantom was not just a Concord warship. It was a hunter, a predator engineered to seek out and eliminate rebel cells with terrifying efficiency. First contact. The news came abruptly. Rebel outpost Verdant Reach is under attack. Elira's voice crackled urgently through the encrypted comlink as Kale prepared for a meeting with Coalition leaders. The Obsidian Phantom has been confirmed on site. Kale's heart tightened. Verdant Reach was a vital node in their network, a place where trust was still fragile but essential. If the Phantom could breach their defenses there, no colony was safe. Without hesitation, Kale assembled a rapid response squadron, their faces grim with determination. The mission was clear. Protect Verdant Reach, gather intel on the Obsidian Phantom, and if possible, strike back into the void. Kale's shuttle pierced the atmosphere of Verdant Reach, descending through layers of cloud and storm to the colony below. The once lush moon was scarred, its forests and fields disrupted by sudden explosions and firestorms. From the command center, Kale watched holographic displays tracking enemy movements. The Obsidian Phantom's cloaking remained active, but the sensors detected subtle disturbances in the electromagnetic field, brief flickers where the ship revealed itself for just seconds. It was a deadly game of cat and mouse. The battle for Verdant Reach. The Concord strike teams were precise, ruthless. They moved quickly to destroy communication towers and power grids, isolating Verdant Reach from Coalition support. Kale's warriors launched counterattacks, utilizing guerrilla tactics learned from months of hard fighting. They ambushed patrols, sabotaged supply lines, and fought fiercely for every inch of ground. Despite their valor, the Phantom's technological superiority was clear. The Concorde deployed robotic drones armed with high-energy disruptors, that incapacitated warriors before they could close in. Kale barely dodged a blast during a tense firefight in the colony's central power station. His reflexes, sharpened by the Warseed protocol, saved him, but the cost was heavy. Several comrades fell. A deadly discovery. In the chaos, Elira uncovered a chilling piece of intelligence. The Obsidian Phantom was not merely a warship. It was a prototype battle platform integrating AI-driven combat systems with a neural interface designed to counteract Warseed-enhanced humans. This revelation shook the Coalition's confidence. The Warseed had been humanity's secret weapon, the spark that had ignited their rebellion. But the Concord was evolving too. The Phantom was a weapon tailored to snuff out that spark. The cost of war. Back in the council chambers, the mood was grim. The victory at Verdant Reach was Pyrrhic at best. Losses are mounting, Rax growled, pounding his fist on the table. If we don't adapt, we'll be hunted to extinction. Kale knew he carried the weight of every fallen warrior, every shattered family. The rebellion had turned from a hopeful spark to a desperate fight for survival. Forging new strategies, Kale convened his most trusted officers, including Elira and Rax, in a secure underground bunker beneath Ironhold. We must outthink the Phantom, Kale said. Direct confrontation is suicide. We need new tactics, new weapons, and new allies. Elira suggested enhanced electronic warfare, developing devices that could jam the Phantom's cloaking and neural systems. Rax proposed increased sabotage of Concord supply lines to delay their research and production of advanced war machines. Together, they crafted a multi-pronged strategy focused on disruption, intelligence gathering, and targeted strikes. A glimmer of hope. Amidst the darkness, a beacon emerged. Encrypted transmissions from another Warseed colony, a research station named Nova Bastion, revealed that scientists there had reverse-engineered some of the Concord's technology. They had developed a prototype weapon designed specifically to counteract the Phantom's AI neural link, a pulse emitter capable of disabling the ship's systems temporarily. The message ended with a simple but powerful line: "We have hope. We can fight back." Rallying the forces. The coalition leaders rallied their forces. Ironhold and Ashfall sent skilled engineers and fighters to Nova Bastion to help refine and deploy the pulse emitter. Kale coordinated rapid training programs, preparing warriors to utilize the new technology and new tactics in the field. The Warseed protocol surged within them, but now it was tempered by knowledge and innovation. The calm before the storm. As the coalition prepared for a decisive encounter, Ironhold itself braced for a storm. The Obsidian Phantom was not just a hunter, it was a symbol of the Concord's determination to crush the rebellion. The colony tightened defenses, rationed supplies, and prepared for a battle that could decide the fate of all Warseed colonies. Kale stood once more on Ironhold's highest lookout, staring into the void. The galaxy was watching. The shadow was waiting. But so was humanity. A new resolve. Kale's thoughts drifted to the faces of fallen friends, the frightened children training to become warriors, and the countless colonies that looked to Ironhold for leadership. The Warseed was more than a protocol. It was the essence of humanity's fire, fierce, unyielding, and eternal. The Obsidian Phantom might cast a long shadow, but the fires of rebellion burned brighter than ever. And soon, the war would reach a new, explosive chapter. The ticking clock. The colony of Nova Bastion hung in orbit around a battered, dying star, a symbol of humanity's endurance against cosmic odds. Inside its reinforced labs, a team of engineers, scientists, and Warseed-enhanced warriors worked tirelessly. Time was running out. The Obsidian Phantom prowled ever closer to the heart of the rebellion. Each day it stalked a new colony, each strike heavier and more devastating. Without a way to neutralize the ship's neural interface and cloaking technology, the rebellion faced annihilation. Kale's message had arrived days earlier. "We need your breakthrough, Nova Bastion. Humanity depends on it." Science and spirit. Among the scientists was Dr. Mira Solis, a brilliant quantum physicist and veteran of the Warseed protocol activation. Her face was marked by years of sleepless nights and near-constant worry, but her eyes burned with determination. "The Concord's tech is unlike anything we've seen," Mira explained to the gathered coalition leaders via hologram. Their neural interface synchronizes with Warseed-enhanced humans, predicting and countering our reflexes. It's adaptive, fast, and lethal. Elira, listening intently, nodded. Your team believes the pulse emitter can disrupt this interface? Mira smiled faintly. Not just disrupt, temporarily sever it. We're using a combination of electromagnetic pulses and quantum entanglement to overload the Phantom's AI neural pathways. Building hope. The pulse emitter was no simple device. It was a compact but powerful weapon, designed to emit a burst of energy capable of piercing the Phantom's cloaking fields and scrambling its control systems for a critical window of time, enough for rebel forces to strike. In the lab, engineers soldered circuit boards and calibrated quantum arrays, while warriors tested prototypes against simulated attacks. Kale, through secure communication, urged patience and precision. This is our edge. Without it, the Phantom will keep hunting us like prey. Testing the limits. The first field test took place on a remote asteroid outpost, chosen for its similarity to Verdant Reach. Kale personally observed via remote feed as the pulse emitter was deployed against a drone program to simulate the Phantom's neural interface. The results were promising but imperfect. The drone's systems faltered, its movements slowed and then froze, but only for seconds. Mira explained the challenge. The pulse emitter drains enormous power and has a limited range. We need to increase both or risk losing the advantage in a real battle. Innovation under fire. The pressure mounted. Concord forces accelerated their attacks, sensing the rebellion's desperation. Nova Bastion itself was targeted by strike raids that threatened to destroy the labs before the pulse emitter could be perfected. In the chaos, Myra's team worked around the clock, improvising solutions and adapting designs. Kale arranged for a daring supply run through Concord blockades, risking lives to deliver crucial components. We will not let the Concord silence this hope, Kale vowed during a briefing. A new prototype. Weeks passed. Exhaustion etched deeper lines on Myra's face, but progress was undeniable. The new pulse emitter was sleeker, more powerful, and equipped with a focused emitter that could be mounted on fighter craft. Elira watched as warriors trained with mock deployments, learning to coordinate their strikes precisely when the pulse was fired. This changes everything, she said, eyes shining with renewed hope. The Phantom won't know what hit it. The plan. With the pulse emitter nearing readiness, Kale and the coalition leaders devised their boldest operation yet. A coordinated ambush targeting the Obsidian Phantom itself. The plan was perilous. Using intelligence gathered from spies and drones, the coalition would lure the Phantom into a trap near the asteroid belt between Ironhold and Ashfall. Fighter squadrons equipped with pulse emitters would strike simultaneously, disabling the Phantom's defenses and neural interface. Then ground forces would storm its command modules, aiming to capture the ship or destroy it entirely. Tensions rise. Despite the plan's promise, nerves ran high. Rax, ever the pragmatist, voiced concerns during a council meeting. The Phantom is fast and adaptive. If this goes wrong, we lose more than a ship. We lose morale. Kale responded with quiet conviction. If we do nothing, we lose everything. This is our moment to reclaim the fight. Elira added, we've trained hard, learned from every encounter. The pulse emitter gives us an edge. We must trust each other. Countdown to battle. The day of the ambush arrived with grim anticipation. Fighter pilots climbed into cockpits, weapons armed, and systems checked. Ground forces prepared for swift deployment. Kale stood with Elira and Rax, watching the stars through Ironhold's observation dome. Remember, Kale said softly, the war seed is not just power. It's our spirit, our unity. That is what the Concord fears. Engagement. The Phantom arrived as expected, sleek and silent, cutting through space with deadly purpose. The fighter squadrons engaged, drawing the Phantom into the asteroid field. At the perfect moment, the pulse emitters fired, a brilliant wave of energy rippling through space. For the first time, the Phantom flickered, its cloaking failing and neural systems overloaded. Fighters swarmed, striking with precision. The tides turned. The battle raged fiercely. The Phantom's AI struggled to adapt, but the pulse emitter's disruption bought precious time. Kale led the ground assault teams deployed via boarding pods, storming the Phantom's hull. Inside, warriors fought through automated defenses, their warseed reflexes guiding them through deadly corridors. The ship was a labyrinth of steel and shadows, but the rebels pressed on, determined to seize victory. Victory and loss. After hours of brutal combat, the Phantom's command core was breached. The Obsidian Phantom, once a ghost stalking the stars, was now a prize within human hands. But victory came at a cost. Many warriors lay wounded or dead, the ship itself heavily damaged. Kale walked through the silent corridors, feeling the weight of sacrifice but also the undeniable surge of hope. A new dawn. The capture of the Obsidian Phantom marked a turning point. The Coalition now held a symbol, a weapon once feared, now theirs to study and repurpose. It was proof that humanity's resilience, intelligence, and unity could overcome even the deadliest threats. Kale addressed the Coalition through a broadcast, voice steady and proud. The Phantom was meant to break us. Instead, it has become our beacon. The war seed is alive, and so is humanity's fire. Looking ahead, even as celebrations rippled through the colonies, Kale knew the war was far from over. The Concord would retaliate, and new dangers would emerge. But for the first time in a long while, the rebellion was on the offensive. The pulse emitter was more than a weapon. It was a promise that humanity would fight, endure, and reclaim the stars. After the storm, the skies over Irehold were quiet once more, but the silence was heavy with the ghost of battle. The Obsidian Phantom lay crippled in a hidden dockyard, its hull scarred and inert, a trophy of a fierce rebellion. Yet the victory had stirred a storm beneath the surface. The Concord had not forgotten their defeat. Retribution would come swift, brutal, and unrelenting. Kale stood on the battered battlements of Ironhold, gazing out across the darkened horizon. He could feel the tension rippling through the colony like static, the uneasy calm before the next wave. The price of victory. Inside the command center, the air was thick with exhaustion and determination. Casualties are high, Elira reported, her voice steady but edged with fatigue. We lost over 30 fighters during the assault, and many more were injured. Rax slammed his fist on the table. The Concord won't sit idle. They'll come back stronger, with more ships and new weapons. We must prepare. Kale nodded grimly. Our pulse emitter worked, but it's not a miracle. It buys us time, nothing more. We need to strengthen every colony, every outpost. Signals in the dark. Late that night, as the colony's inhabitants sought rest, a message arrived. Encrypted, fragmented, but unmistakable. A signal from beyond the known Coalition territories, a hidden resistance group operating deep in Concord space. Myra's eyes widened as she decoded the transmission. This is the Crimson Echoes. They've survived, hidden, and they're calling for allies. Kale leaned forward, heart pounding. The rebellion was no longer isolated. The spark was spreading. The Crimson Echoes. The Crimson Echoes were legendary among rebels, a guerrilla faction known for daring raids and sabotage against Concord supply lines. Their tactics were brutal but effective. Where the Coalition moved with caution, the Echoes struck with ruthless precision. Kale's mind raced. An alliance with the Crimson Echoes could turn the tide, but trust was fragile. Their methods were controversial, and their motives often questioned. A difficult choice. Coalition leaders debated long into the night. Rax argued for cautious cooperation. We can't afford enemies on either side. If they want to fight the Concord, we should support them, but with oversight. Elira was more wary. Their operations could endanger civilians and sabotage delicate diplomacy. We must tread carefully. Kale listened to the voices, then made his decision. We reach out. We build bridges, not walls. The war demands unity, even among uneasy allies. First contact. Kale and Elira led a small delegation aboard a stealth shuttle, heading toward the coordinates provided by the Crimson Echoes. The journey through Concord-controlled space was tense, cloaked in silence and shadows. When they finally reached the Echo's hidden base, a fortress carved into an asteroid, the mood shifted. The Echo stronghold. The asteroid's interior was a maze of tunnels, armories, and war rooms alive with activity. Their leader, a fierce woman known only as Vesper, met Kale with a wary gaze. "We don't trust easily," she said, "but the enemy is greater than our differences." Kale nodded. "Neither do we, but we share a common goal, the fall of the Concord, building trust." Over long hours of negotiation, the two leaders shared intelligence and strategies. Vesper revealed harrowing stories of Echo's raids that had crippled Concord supply chains and sabotaged their research stations. Kale offered news of the pulse emitter and the Phantom's capture, sparking cautious hope. The fragile alliance took shape, a coalition of rebels united by necessity, but driven by different visions of freedom, shared sacrifices. As the delegation prepared to return, Vesper warned of an imminent Concord strike targeting a civilian colony near the Outer Rim. "It's a trap," she said. "They want to break us before we can unite." Kale's resolve hardened. "Then we fight together." The coalition dispatched reinforcements to the threatened colony, coordinating with Echo's forces for a combined defense. Battle on the Outer Rim. The assault came swift and brutal. Concord fleets surged like a tidal wave, targeting civilian centers with overwhelming firepower. Rebel fighters scrambled to defend, while Echo's operatives infiltrated Concord ships, planting explosives and sowing chaos. Kale led ground forces in the colony, coordinating evacuations and counterattacks, turning the tide. The battle was desperate, but the united front held. The pulse emitter technology, combined with Echo's guerrilla tactics, disrupted Concord command and control. Vesper's team struck critical Concord vessels from within, while Kale's forces pushed back the front lines. After hours of fighting, the Concord withdrew, battered and frustrated. A new era of resistance. The victory was more than a tactical success. It was a symbol. Rebel colonies across the galaxy broadcast news of the alliance, sparking renewed hope and a surge in recruitment. Kale returned to Ironhold, greeted by cheers and tears. The war was far from over, but the rebellion was no longer fragmented. The echoes of resistance had become a roar, whispers of the future. In the quiet aftermath, Kale contemplated what lay ahead. The Concord would adapt, escalate, and strike back harder. But the coalition, united with the Crimson Echoes, had changed the rules of engagement. The war was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a fight for humanity's future, and Kale was ready. A fragile dawn. The dawn over Ironhold was pale, the stars fading as the twin suns crept over the horizon. The air was thick with anticipation, a mixture of hope and dread. The war had reached its critical juncture. For months, the coalition had fought tooth and nail against the Concord's relentless advance, but the enemy's power still loomed large. The Obsidian Phantom's capture had been a turning point, yes, but the Concord was far from defeated. Now, all eyes turned toward the last beacon of resistance, the planet Verdant Reach. Verdant Reach, humanity's last stand. Verdant Reach was more than a planet. It was a symbol. Verdant Reach was humanity's final stronghold, a lush world turned fortress, where colonies and military outposts merged into a sprawling network of defenses. Kale had visited Verdant Reach once before. He remembered the thick forests, the humming energy of life beneath the surface, and the faces of civilians who refused to abandon hope. Now that hope was under siege, intel of an incoming storm. Reports poured in. The Concord was massing a fleet, a formidable armada intended to crush Verdant Reach and extinguish the rebellion once and for all. Kale sat in the war room, surrounded by leaders of the coalition and the Crimson Echoes. Elira's voice broke the tense silence. "We estimate their fleet will arrive in 72 hours. The Obsidian Phantom will lead the assault." Rax slammed his fist on the table. "They want to make an example of us, wipe us out and scatter any survivors." Mira stared at the schematics of Verdant Reach's defenses. "Our pulse emitter technology can disrupt the Phantom's interface again, but this time, the enemy will expect it." Kale nodded. "Then we'll have to innovate further. We fight smarter, not just harder." Rallying the forces, the coalition's leaders mobilized quickly. Fighter squadrons were deployed around Verdant Reach's orbit. Ground forces reinforced key outposts, while engineers scrambled to upgrade pulse emitters and defensive systems. Kale moved through the base, speaking with soldiers and civilians alike. rallying them with steady words. "This is not just a fight for survival," he told them. "It is a fight for the right to live, to dream, to reclaim our future." The calm before the storm. The night before the battle, the colony fell into uneasy silence. Kale stood alone on a ridge overlooking verdant reaches, sprawling forests, the stars blinking faintly overhead. Memories flooded back, the faces lost, the battles fought, the narrow victories. But also hope. Humanity's fire was still burning, and no matter the cost, they would not let it go out. Battle for Verdant Reach. As dawn broke, the Concorde fleet appeared on the horizon, a monstrous armada of warships, drones, and fighters. The Obsidian Phantom took its place at the vanguard, its dark hull glinting ominously. Fighter squadrons scrambled, weaving through missile trails and laser fire. The pulse emitters activated in tandem, sending ripples of disruptive energy that shimmered across space. The Phantom's fury. Despite the pulse emitter's interference, the Phantom adapted faster than ever. Its cloaking flickered, but never fully failed. Neural links predicted pilot maneuvers, making Concorde fighters deadly. Kale and Elira coordinated relentless counterattacks, pushing the fleet back inch by inch. The battle was brutal, with losses mounting on both sides. Ground assault. While space raged overhead, ground forces braced for the Concorde's invasion. Drop pods thundered through the atmosphere, scattering across verdant reaches, fortified zones. Rebel warriors, augmented with warseed enhancements, met them with fierce resistance. Kale led a squad deep into the invasion zone, cutting through enemy forces with precision, turning the tide. At the battle's climax, Kale and his team reached the Phantom's boarding ramps, where the Concorde intended to establish a foothold. Using upgraded pulse emitters integrated into their suits, they launched a daring assault to disrupt the ship's neural interface from within. The Phantom shuddered, systems faltered, and for the first time, its AI hesitated. Sacrifice and triumph. But the victory came at a cost. Kale's closest comrades fell in the fierce fighting, Rax wounded gravely, Elira narrowly escaping an explosion. The Phantom's core was destabilizing, threatening to implode. Kale had to make a choice: seize the ship or evacuate before the collapse. With a heavy heart, he ordered retreat, taking critical data and plans to continue the fight elsewhere. A beacon remains. Though the Concorde's assault was repelled, Verdant Reach bore scars, battlefields littered with the fallen, structures shattered but still standing. The Coalition's broadcast sent a clear message across the stars: humanity had survived and would continue to fight. The Obsidian Phantom's capture and near destruction became a legend, a symbol of resilience. The Warseed's legacy. Kale stood once more overlooking Verdant Reach, surrounded by survivors and fighters. The Warseed was never just about power, he said softly. It is about who we are, a species forged by adversity, united by hope. He knew the war was far from over, but humanity's last beacon burned bright, defiant against the darkness. End of the beginning. As Verdant Reach healed, plans for the next phase of resistance took shape. Kale and his allies prepared for a long struggle ahead, aware the Concorde would return, but confident in their strength, their unity, and the indomitable human spirit. The last beacon was not a surrender, but a promise. Humanity would rise. Humanity would endure. Humanity would win.